Today's episode is brought to you by FreedomProject Academy. Looking for a K-12 classical online school built on Judeo-Christian values? FPA is enrolling now for the fall. Request your free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedom, F-O-R, school.com.
It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. I am Dr. Duke, and I am joined by the one and only Katie Petrick. Before we get this ball rolling, can you please do us a solid? Hit the share button so we can educate many, many more patriots around the country. Today we start with, of course, the historical move by the Supreme Court that says millions of children will now have a future in this great country of ours thanks to the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And it's really a time we should be very grateful to the Supreme Court and to God and to every activist who's been fighting for this and for all those people for literally decades and decades have fought this fight. This is a big deal, and it's a first big deal. When you think about how, Katie, we talk about the Department of Education in relation as an analogy here. How long have we been begging to get rid of the federal Department of Education so that education came back to the states and we could all have more control? Well, with the life issue now, that's exactly what's happened with Roe. Roe has been set aside. This pretense of a federal mandate has been demolished. There is no constitutional penumbra that's going to let you make that happen, and the justices were very clear. So this is a remarkable thing, and millions of babies that otherwise might die are going to be born.
And as I like to put it, we now have millions of future students who have been granted access to schools. Now, what condition those schools will be when they get there, we don't know, but at least they have a chance because of what the Supreme Court just did here on Friday. And we want to talk a little bit about it, and specifically how the court ruled, both the majority opinion, we have some concurring opinions, and then obviously we have the dissenting opinion. But it was a 5-4 decision to overturn Roe, but it was also a 6-3 decision with what was happening specifically to get the issue of Roe back on the table, because we're talking about Mississippi specifically. And the 6-3, 5-4 vote was actually brought down by Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts, who said he would vote that Mississippi's law banning abortions after 15 weeks, that we would uphold that, and that's where you got a 6-3 vote. But he said that he would not join the majority in overturning Roe v. Wade, so he actually went with the dissenting opinion on that, so that's why it was a 5-4 decision.
Yeah, the ruling came in the court's opinion. It's Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health, as Katie just pointed out. And one of the things that really moves me about this case is there's a certain sense of cosmic irony here, because the radical left in this country, as we know, has been pushing not just for moderate abortion, to keep abortion, as we say, safe and rare. If you look what's been happening over the last couple of years, it's this radical push to abortion without any consequences or any parameters. 9 months into the pregnancy, a baby can be aborted. If we've seen these horrific laws where if babies are mangled in abortions but they're born alive, you have to let the baby die. One of the great cosmic irony here is that what opened the door for the Supreme Court to get rid of Roe? It was the fact that Planned Parenthood and its surrogates were trying to stop Mississippi, an independent state, from putting a reasonable limit on when an abortion might happen. So therefore, by being greedy, by being unsatisfied with allowing abortion to be pretty much legal everywhere up to certain dates, they pushed a little too far, and they got something they didn't ask for.
And that's just a few adjectives to describe Planned Parenthood. I would add a couple more, but let's just take a look at their reaction to what happened with the Supreme Court ruling. Breaking! The Supreme Court has taken away our right to abortion and overturned Roe v. Wade, opening the floodgates for states across the country to ban abortion. This is coming from Planned Parenthood's official Twitter account.
Can I ask you a question about this, Miss Katie? I mean, you're one of my favorite logicians. Does that make any sense to you? If the Supreme Court has actually taken away all their right to an abortion, then how could they open the floodgates to getting rid of more abortions. That does not seem to make a lot of logical sense.
No, but they don't care about logic. It's just about feelings. But they continued. Apparently, the court has failed us all, us being the Planned Parenthood Action Group. But this is far from over. And then this is where more greed comes in with Planned Parenthood. We know what politicians want because it's already happening. To ban abortion state by state and eventually a national ban. But like generations before us, obviously the ones who are allowed to be born, those ones, will fight for each other, but not for the unborn baby. If you or someone you know needs an abortion, reach out. 1-800. Not giving out the information.
I love how they have the temerity, Planned Parenthood, to say like earlier generations. You mean like the generation of Margaret Sanger, who wanted abortion to be legal so you could get rid of black and brown skinned people? Those are the generations before. You're going to throw in our faces. To this day, the carnage wrought on African American babies is higher by far than any other demographic. This is Black Lives Matter at its finest, right? As long as you're killing babies in the name of eugenics and Margaret Sanger, that's not really something we should care about. And this really, as Katie pointed out earlier, this has a lot of impact for education. For a long time, progressive liberals, it's been said, have been basically aborting away their children, and which is going to give rise sooner or later to a more conservative country. And theoretically, you look at what's happening now. A codicil of this, I think, for education. And Katie said, you know, who knows what wicked state education, public education will be in 10, 12 years. But the fact is that now you have more and more Americans who are free to pursue freedom and liberty and all those wonderful things that the Constitution guarantees them.
All right, before we go to our break, let's take a look at what Bill Maher, who is actually maybe the lone liberal of the media, who's a true liberal, not a leftist. There's a difference. Let's take a look at what Bill Maher had to say.
As I said in the monologue, it's always about the Supreme Court, right? I mean, this is something conservatives have gotten for the longest time. They play the long game. They knew this from the beginning. It's about getting the court. That's where the power is. They put 6 Catholics on the court. I'm not going to blame you personally, Andrew, because you're Catholic and you defend Catholics, but I blame it on you.
I think you're giving the Republicans more credit than they deserve in this. It was luck to some extent. If Hillary Clinton had won in 2016, this wouldn't have happened. If Ruth Bader Ginsburg had resigned and retired when she should have, this probably wouldn't have happened. This is Trump adding 3 people to this court. And this is his real legacy.
They play the long game, and they know how to win, and they did.
But if Hillary had won, she would have appointed
Yes.
3 too, and then it would have been completely different. So there's a lot of contingency here.
Well, Republicans don't play purity politics the way that those of us on the left do. As you mentioned in your monologue, Rusty Bowers, this guy whose life was almost ruined by Donald Trump, still said that he would vote for Donald Trump because for him,
Right.
the principle was more important than the individual. Whereas those of us on the left are looking for the perfect candidate, and there is no perfect candidate. And so a lot of people stay home, and this is what you get.
A lot to unpack there. Stay tuned after the break.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about what Bill Maher was going to say and what his guest had to say. It makes you wonder, according to what Bill Maher says, what was it actually the long game that the Republicans supposedly have been playing, or was it what the guest said and hey, it was just kind of luck?
I think Andrew Sullivan was exactly correct. Don't overestimate Republicans. We've seen this for a long time, and they did get lucky. I mean, this is a note out to you, never Trumpers out there. Okay, this is why you bite your lip and you hold your nose and you vote for somebody even if he has triggered Twitter fingers, right? If you don't like his emails. The fact is that he put 3 people on. Andrew Sullivan is right. If Hillary Clinton had one, it would be 6-3 the other way. Plus, you'd probably have to add John Roberts into that as well, and it would have been 7-2. And so I think he's exactly right. Don't give too much credit to Republicans. However, the fact remains is that it took a lot of bravery, and we should say this, it took a lot of bravery for Clarence Thomas and the so-called conservative 5 to do this with all the pressure, all the threats, all the death threats.
Well, and this is exactly the point that people don't understand and need to. The judicial branch is not the legislative branch, is not the executive branch. We have 3 distinct branches, and our judicial branch is supposed to be nonpartisan. It is not supposed to be political in this sense, but we've trumped it up, if you will, and made it so political. But it's very telling when you look at specifically a case like this, Roe v. Wade, and you look at the actual opinions of the court. When you look at the majority opinion and how it's based in law,
That's right.
which is what the Supreme Court is supposed to be basing everything on, is what does it say in our Constitution. Then you look at the dissenting opinion that was provided by Justices Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan, and everything is based in feelings and policy procedures, which is what the legislatures can do at the state level. But what happened in this specific case is the Supreme Court took a look and ruled that in our Constitution, it is not constitutional to have abortion. It is not. They said nowhere in our Constitution anything about abortion. So guess where it goes? Back to the states.
Yes. Nowhere did the majority say you can't have abortions, period. They didn't say any of that. They said what should have happened back in 1973. Let the states decide. This is a classic example of federalism. There is nothing in this Constitution that says one way or another, so allow states to do what states do.
And at the very beginning, from line 1 of Justice Alito's majority opinion he provided, he says, we hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled. The Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision, including the one on which the defenders of Roe and Casey now chiefly rely, the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Wow, look at him like citing the actual Constitution in there. Meanwhile, let's go at the very beginning of what we have here for the dissent. They said that for half a century, Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood of Southeastern Pennsylvania versus Casey, so we're talking about Roe v. Wade and Casey, have protected the liberty and equality of women. Roe held and Casey reaffirmed that the Constitution safeguards a woman's right to decide for herself whether to bear a child. Where did it say that in the Constitution? I didn't. I guess I missed it. And it's all about making the choice for the woman. And the government couldn't control a woman's body or the course of a woman's life. It could not determine what the woman's future would be. Just the tone in reading that versus reading the tone of the majority. If you go in, the whole opinions, all of them are out there, including the concurring opinion from Justice Roberts and actually Justice Thomas as well. It's a very long document, but you should read it because too many people don't understand actually what is happening in this case.
Yeah, and one of the big problems here is that with more irony. Isn't it amazing how now there's no doubt in Democrat minds what a woman is? Let's not forget that.
I'm
right?
so confused.
For those all of a sudden, the creature known as woman has made a comeback, only so that you could allow her to abort their babies, apparently, and go back to the status quo. But I want to amplify what Katie said right there. What really is alarming is how the media here in this country is so out of control and so dangerous. They're allowing the left to say, all across the spectrum, that the 5 so-called conservative justices are being political. They are not. They are citing chapter and verse of constitutional law. They are citing the Constitution itself to do what judges have to do, to make sure that their arguments and their conclusions are constitutionally solid. That is not politics. Meanwhile, on the left, as Katie pointed out, you really should read the dissent because it almost never mentions the law. It talks about precedent and morality, and it talks about what may happen to women down the road if this goes too far. But none of that has to do about any of this. And the irony is, again, my third ironic comment today, is that how utterly and completely and thoroughly the leftist judges are politicizing this, not the conservative ones.
And I just want to end on one final point. A little fact check here for you. More than 62 million babies have been murdered since Roe v. Wade went into effect, and that includes 19 million black babies, since we're talking, politics here in this country and race all the time. And it comes out to, at this point, about 1 million babies every year.
And from that statistic, 1 out of every 3 in this country are black babies.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
Well, the Supreme Court has been bumping this past week. They basically were like, hey, let's just put all our rulings out in 1 week, and maybe the news then will stop bugging them and actually giving death threats. But hopefully that'll stop. But for now, at least, we know that earlier in the week, before a Roe v. Wade decision had come out, they actually ruled about the government's ability to ban taxpayer-funded tuition assistance for private education. And this was, again, a 6-3 decision of, obviously, on ideological lines. This time, Justice Roberts decided, okay, I'll go over to the conservative side versus the Kagan, Sotomayor, and Breyer are doing. And this was a case called Carson versus Macon. And the Supreme Court ruled that in that state of Maine, way up there in the Northeast, if you've ever been there, way up there in the Northeast in the state of Maine, their tuition assistance program was unconstitutional because it had barred parents or guardians from using the funds that they were given to be put toward private religious funds. And so, Chief Justice John Roberts actually said that Maine's non-sectarian requirement for its otherwise generally available tuition assistance payments violates the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. In short, the prohibition on state-based discrimination under the Free Exercise Clause is not a permission to engage in use-based discrimination.
Yeah, the case originated with 2 families who wanted to, quote, send their children to Christian schools in the state and asked for the help of Maine's tuition assistance program. Those plaintiffs argued that the state's exclusion of schools that provide religious instruction from the program violates the Constitution. And of course it does. I still am amazed at this. Watching the Supreme Court for the last 30 years, how many times have we seen in our lifetimes where the Supreme Court has had to come down and say, look, there is no justification for excluding religion from the public sphere, that religion has a First Amendment. It's the very first thing you almost have in the Constitution and the First Amendment. So the degree to which leftist organizations or left-leaning places just have got it in their head that every aspect of religion, every aspect of fair play and inclusion when it comes to religious institutions has to be wiped away because the Constitution believes that. It does not. How much money, time, and court time would we save if we just educated everybody with civics and what the Constitution really says?
Civics? What's civics?
It's a Honda.
Well, in the state of Maine, at least from the state's perspective, those at the higher levels, they argued that allowing that tax dollars to go toward private schools, such as certain Christian schools, that could trample upon the idea that a public education is both defined by inclusion and tolerance. Where's diversity? Oh, wait, it's coming up. And reflective of the diversity of our students and our community. Basically, we're at the point now in our history where if you don't say diversity, inclusion, and tolerance somewhere in your sentence, we're just not even going to pay attention.
And of course, diversity means everybody looks different but thinks the same. Tolerance means you believe what we say, not what you think. And of course, inclusion, as we just see here, the only way we can be inclusive is to exclude religious organizations. That sums it up for the progressive left.
Okie dokie, Smokey, before we go, let's take a little time to fill you in on some of those other crazy stories that, well, I guess we've taken a look at. So we're going to start at the woke mouse house, where Disney can't stop pushing their not-so-secret gay agenda for kids. Disney Pixar's latest animation, Lightyear, recently hit theaters, and it bombed big time. Aside from the confusing link between Toy Story and this movie, Disney decided to go all in by featuring a gay kiss. Well, parents across the country told Disney loud and clear that they would not pay for that, and as a result, the $200 million budgeted film only brought in $50 million opening weekend. In fact, to add insult to injury, 14 nations in the Middle East and Asia went a step further and banned the movie entirely. But if you think this latest flop is going to force Disney to abandon their woke ways, well, no. In fact, the mouse is doubling down on the rainbows with their upcoming release of Strange World, which features an openly gay teen romance. Reports say the animated movie includes a relationship between two gay boys and a father who is overly excited to have his son find true love. Here's a clip from the trailer.
Where in the world are we? What in the... We are in way over our heads. I'm not an explorer. I'm a farmer. Whoa. We need to get out of here.
If you want to back out, this is the time to do it.
Really?
No! Messing with you. Come on. Let's make history.
Strange indeed. There wasn't too much to glean from that, but Strange World is set to be released in November, as you saw, this Thanksgiving. But I will point out that Top Gun, by the way, Top Gun Maverick, with no woke LGBT agenda, just crossed the $1 billion box office mark, making it the most successful movie of the year. Duke, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I watched that trailer, and I saw no reason why the sexuality of anybody in that video matters. It doesn't matter. In fact, it so doesn't matter that they couldn't even jam it into the trailer, number one. And number two, why is it that when we conservatives don't watch these movies, we're evil homophobes, but when almost all of Asia doesn't and won't even show them, the progressive left has nothing to say about the intolerance of the Far East? Why is that? Could it be that they're not, I don't know, Caucasians?
Well, we're going to wrap things up now with some entertainment that may be pretty much more in Duke's wheelhouse. And Kyle Rittenhouse, the young man who made national headlines after defending himself by shooting 3 men in defense during the Kenosha, Wisconsin riots back in 2020, is now cashing in on his fame with a new video game. It's called Kyle Rittenhouse's Turkey Shoot, and the object is to shoot fake news turkeys that attack Kyle. That didn't happen in real life. Oh, wait. The cost to purchase the game is $10, and according to the website, funds will be used to sue the left-wing media organizations responsible for defaming him. If you want to join the hunt, you can pre-order your copy at RittenhouseGame.com. Duke, will you be shooting some fake news turkeys?
I'm not much of a video gamer, but I have a concept for them. How about they have, DAs, district attorneys, keep taking the gun away from the kid, and only to get it back and shoot more turkeys? I'd like that.
Well, if you purchase the game, you let us know if that actually does happen in the game. We won't know. But that's going to wrap it up for this segment. More to come next time.
And there we go. For all of us at Freedom Project, stay educated, my friends.